Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nothing But Football, the world's greatest podcast, brought to you by the most handsome men in the world.
Big time.
Wow, how are we doing, Ben Bowman?
Very good, thanks, mate.
Double B's over here.
Double B. New manager on the way, feeling good.
Yes.
That dopamine's settling in quite nicely.
His first interview was good. His first interview
Oh,
was great.
100%. And also, we called this back in, when did we do that video?
March,
January?
earlier than that?
Yeah, earlier than that. Like,
Me,
we did,
Pat, wasn't it?
yeah, and we did say Thomas Frank. It was Frank, or was it Iriona? Was it Frank? I don't know. Frank was the man.
We did pick. Did we pick Frank? Or did we pick
I think we
Iriona?
did. I think we did pick
Frank in the end.
For the
Okay.
purpose of the video, we'll say we picked Frank.
Yeah, we definitely did.
We
Definitely. Don't go back and check. Oh, do go back and check that out because we did speak about some really good things.
Yeah.
And Ryan Cherky actually was one of them who
Yes.
we said to go to Spurs.
Yeah.
Now he's at Man City. Look at us,
Right.
way ahead of the curve. Look at us. As you see, of course, there's only two of us today. Henry Hill was meant to be on the podcast. He couldn't make it in the end last minute, but it doesn't matter because we've got some big things to talk about and transfer news to get through. But just before we get into that, I want to say a personal thank you to you guys at home for listening and watching on YouTube for the last season. The year, it's been incredible. Thank you so much. I've got some big plans, hopefully, for the next campaign. A big thank you to Ben as well for always joining
Pleasure,
me. I
mate.
really
Absolute
do
pleasure.
appreciate it. And also for watching on Spotify as well. We were one of the basically like top 50 podcasts in the UK for the last week. So thank you so much for giving us all the support on all the different platforms. I know sometimes we kind of just get straight into videos and stuff, and maybe sometimes I don't do this enough, but I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And I am hoping to have a lot more content come out next season. So don't worry, it's planning. It's in the workshop behind me. I'm on it.
Cooking
It is
away.
cooking. Indeed it is. But without further ado, let's get on to this video. As you can see, we're talking about the transfers or signings that your club cannot miss out on this summer. And so I think it's worth starting off with one of the clubs who are yet to really do their business or officially do their business. Man City have been busy. United have been busy. Even Chelsea, to a degree, have been busy. Arsenal are yet to confirm any big transfer yet. Obviously, we've seen links to a striker in Benjamin Sesko. He's someone we'll probably jump onto into a second. But Zubimendi.
Yeah.
Zubimendi is this really interesting deal where obviously lots of stuff being spoken about Zubimendi last season about joining Liverpool. In the end, decided not to do that. Wanted to stay at Real Sociedad. Had another year there. Had a good year there as well. Did very well for Spain as well recently. But now been linked to Arsenal. Seemed like that kind of in January, post-January term was then confirmed that he was going to join to Arsenal. He himself then came out and spoke about, well, look, nothing's done yet. I love Xabi Alonso, my favourite manager I've ever worked with. I want to work with him again one day. He's at Real Madrid. If I get the call, things can change. Since then, it kind of seems like, it's been reconfirmed that he is going to go to Arsenal.
Yeah.
How big of a deal is this? Because obviously they have lost Jorginho. They've got Thomas Partey, I think they've ended up giving a new contract to. Declan Rice is in their midfield. They've obviously got Mikel Merino, who ended up playing a bit of a striker role as well towards the end of last season. In this perfect setup, when Zubimendi comes in, I guess it's a kind of Declan Rice, Zubimendi, Odegaard midfield.
Yes.
How big of a deal do they need to get this through the door ASAP? Because also I think Arsenal fans are kind of losing their heads a little bit and no transfers being done.
Yeah, we got a Fabrizio Romano, here we go, like a couple of months ago, I think, on it as well. So I think the nagging doubt in Arsenal fans' minds probably comes from the fact maybe that Zubimendi did do that U-turn on Liverpool, and also Real Madrid are piling on the pressure in the media, like with Marca all coming out and saying like they put Zubimendi on the front page of it and all this kind of stuff, saying that he wants Real Madrid. It's also because he played really well against Portugal the other day. That's why it's kind of come about again, and people are like, oh, actually Madrid might want to have a look at him. And he obviously did do that interview and stuff. So there was probably a nagging doubt there, but I think a lot of English journalists, like I saw David Ornstein basically come out and said like Arsenal fans don't need to worry, which, you know, when Ornstein speaks, like
you listen.
that's when he knocks, it's a different knock. But I think it's really important that Arsenal just get it done ASAP. More just because, I mean, the transfer window's closed now, but it opens up again
in like
next
2 weeks.
Week.
Yeah.
So it's
like close like 10 days.
And I do think that's kind of distorted people's like patience levels a little bit, because it's like you see clubs scrambling to get deals done before the Club World Cup, which, I mean, Arsenal aren't even competing in. So it's like, as long as they get him in before pre-season, bear in mind so much legwork has kind of gone into this deal already, I think they're fine. But I think it's important that they are able to hold off any Madrid pressure, which I do think, like I said, I think this is classic Madrid tactics, like using the media to try and turn a player's head a little bit. I think it's a done deal. They're doing the same thing with, I'm sure we're probably going to talk about Rodrigo. They're doing the same thing with Rodrigo at the moment as well, where they're like, no, he's definitely staying. Like, I saw literally a thing this morning saying he's going to stay, like putting out pictures of him training solo with Xabi Alonso and all this kind of stuff. It's like, I still think Rodrigo's a good chance he goes. Like Madrid have done this so many times where they don't want to have this almost image that players. They use the media to kind of put on pressure to say, like, they don't want to have this image that players either don't want to join Real Madrid or don't want to leave. So they're doing it with Rodrigo and Zubimendi at the moment. And I still think there's a very good chance both of them end up at Arsenal, which is quite scary, actually. But Zubimendi, again, I think we obviously on the pod last week, we spoke about midfield signings potentially for them. And I floated, you suggested Tielemans. I was like, I really like that idea. But Zubimendi, I think, again, people have been a bit unsure about him because he didn't have... In the Europa League, he was a little bit unconvincing in some of the performances. Obviously, Sociedad got knocked out by Man United, didn't they? And in that game, I think where the spotlight was on him a little bit, people were like, "Oh, I'm not actually sure he's that great." But I think when you see him for Spain in that game, in a Nations League final against a really good Portugal side, a really good Portugal midfield, he was excellent, absolutely excellent. I think Arsenal. We spoke a little bit about, like, is Rice an 8 or a 6, but I think he's kind of the perfect player to kind of complement that. He is good at winning the ball back. He's not necessarily that big physical 6 that maybe Arsenal fans or some fans think they need, but if they're Arsenal going to play a similar system where they've got Lewis Skelly kind of coming into left back from midfield, into midfield from left back, you get a lot of physicality there. You get a big dual winner in there, and then you have him and Zubimendi kind of working nicely as a pivot. Yeah. Rice going on. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I think it's imperative they get it done, but I think the pressure is more coming from the media in Spain rather than anything that's actually happening. Never say never, because like I said, he did do that U-turn on Liverpool, but I think he still signs for Arsenal.
He's an element of one of those kind of players, like shiny toys kind of thing, I think, as well at the moment for Real Madrid. And look, I think it is difficult if you're a Spanish player and Real Madrid come possibly knocking for you. I think it can change things quite quickly, very quickly for you. I do wonder possibly about that Real Madrid midfield at one point. Like Camavinga isn't necessarily they've got such a young midfield there, but surely if they bring in another DM, one of them, Tchouaméni or Camavinga, goes, hang on a second, like when am I going to get into my ideal?
I think Tchouaméni will go. I'm surprised that not a lot of
Camavinga plays centre back a little bit as well.
Yeah, true. He's
left back.
Because City were linked with Camavinga not long ago, were they? They were like trying to maybe do that deal. I mean, he's versatile, can play at full back or in midfield, but obviously that's not going to happen anymore. You wouldn't think with them signing Aït-Nouri.
I do think sometimes though, some of them do just love Real Madrid. Yes. As in, there is an element, and I get it as well. Like, if you're playing for Real Madrid, arguably one of the 2 or 3 biggest teams in the world, how do you kind of say, actually, I want to move on from this, I want to take another step, I want to leave? Like, you mentioned there before, not many players do kind of leave Real Madrid at the peak of their careers for the idea of wanting to go play elsewhere. It's not very often that happens.
And they still need to replace Toni Kroos, which is something they didn't do last summer. Modric is obviously gone as well now. So they will definitely be in that market. So
I do kind of think though that maybe Kroos might be a little bit taken up by a little bit of Trent.
Maybe.
Like, in what he does slightly. But you are right. Modric is obviously leaving. That's such a crucial player for them. I mean, they do still need to kind of figure out how to get Arda Güler into the team, who is, again, such an incredible prospect. But in terms of Zubimendi and Arsenal, I would tend to agree. Like, look, this is a position now of need. I don't think they can really continue to plan the future of Thomas Partey playing in that midfield personally. And Zubimendi would definitely partner Rice. Like, look, I know last year, especially on the last episode, I mentioned obviously stuff about Rice and possibly think he's a 6. And Arsenal fans in the comments were disagreeing. They did think he was more of an 8 role, and that's absolutely fine. Like, if that's what your personal opinion is, absolutely fine. Yeah. And I'm not saying that he's bad at that either. No. But Zubimendi would complement that. That would make a nice partnership between them. And again, like, Zubimendi isn't this like guy who's just sitting deep, but he can also push forward with the ball.
That's
as well.
The beauty of both of him and Rice, is that they can do both.
Exactly. Maybe that becomes a thing where it's almost like a you say I go, I say you go. Yeah. Very much in the game. It's a very a movable midfield there. And so I think that's a deal. I think that's a deal that has to be done for Arsenal, especially all this kind of news around it. I think makes it. I think, as you mentioned earlier, Arsenal fans are getting frustrated about this being not being done yet. I think it's also worth noting, because we had this early period in the transfer window opening up, deals aren't always done this quickly. No. Early in the window. I think because we've had that 10 days and everyone's seen other clubs being busy, that it almost feels like, oh my god, why aren't my club doing anything? Whereas actually normally the transfer window wouldn't have been opened yet. And because of the Club World Cup, it's had to have been forced open quite quickly. So I think it's worth saying to people relax a little bit. don't worry as much. Like, the deals will happen eventually.
There's a lot of that kind of going on with it. I'm sure a lot of fan bases are the same. There's a lot of that going on within the Spurs fan base at the moment, especially where there was that uncertainty over the manager. It's like, we need to get our ducks in a row to be able to move quickly, because you see what United are doing, you see what these other teams are doing. So I do think there's a general feeling of anxiety that wouldn't have been there. So you do have to take that into account a little bit. To be fair, I think with Arsenal fans, I think most of them seem quite calm about Zubimendi. I think they're probably getting a little bit more anxious over the striker situation, because that feels like it's something that's been going on from last summer, and maybe even potentially the summer before, or certainly last summer and January just gone, because they were in for Watkins, or, I mean, who actually knows who was really pushing that move. It feels like the anxiety is more around the striker, because every single day it's like the conversation is the same: Gyökeres or Sesko, Gyökeres or Sesko, and it's like you hear these updates. Yesterday it was like Gyökeres is apparently he's fallen out with
the board.
Like, so it's just that. I feel like there's probably more anxiety over that.
And I get it as well, right? Like, let's be honest, over the last 2 seasons, the thing that Arsenal missed out on is a clinical striker.
Yeah.
Is someone who, and kind of that's done a good job, or arguably a great job. And Moreno, when he got put up top, like, did a very good job. But Arsenal, there's a very strong argument to say the reason they have not won the league or won one of these major competitions just yet is because they didn't have a striker or someone up there like an Erling Haaland, like one of the world's best, to put these goals away. And look, Sesko or Gyökeres, there are still question marks about themselves and whether they actually fill that quota of being one of the world's best and being able to reach 20 goals in the Premier League or whatever it might be. However, you can't know until they've signed or they've done that business yet. And I completely understand why Arsenal fans are worried about this, because it's something that they've been looking at, this glaring hole for over a year now, and saying, why don't we fill this? And they have yet to do that. Instead, they've made more defensive signings and whatever it may be. So then, Sesko rejected Saudi Arabia. Their window's also closed now due to the Club World Cup stuff. Supposedly, RB Leipzig are going to be holding out for more than £65 million, which is a lot of money. They want to be reaching his release clause, which is a little bit higher than that. This is a player who has definitely shown lots of promise, lots of bright moments, has definitely got this kind of natural instinct of a striker, but I don't think he is by far the finished article of what may be as I mentioned earlier, one of these world best guys could be. However, that's not to say he couldn't become that at Arsenal quite quickly. He's shown very promising signs. But this RB Leipzig side haven't necessarily had a stellar season. He's definitely scored some quite incredible goals. I think he has that ability in his locker, which is always a nice plus to have in one of your starting strikers or your star man up top. What do we think about the Sesko deal? Is it more of it has to be Sesko or Gyökeres? As long as it's one of them, it's fine. Yeah. For this striker mould that Arsenal can't miss out on, or should they look elsewhere? Should they kind of look towards maybe an Ollie Watkins, a Premier League proven guy who might be a lot cheaper as well? Yeah, Villa might be willing to sell him due to their kind of financial not issues yet, but possible issues. What do you think it needs to be? Is it one of those two, Gyökeres or Sesko, or just get a striker in the door?
It's a difficult one. I did see there was like an Arsenal ITK that kind of did a long thread yesterday where they were talking about the latest on Sesko and Gyökeres, and they mentioned Watkins. It's almost like essentially that's like the backup option. It's like if they can't get one of those deals done, it definitely feels like with Sesko the issue is about the money. Also, Leipzig, I can't really understand how Leipzig have got this sort of bargaining position when they haven't got any European football next year, or certainly no Champions League football.
Yeah.
So obviously, and they know Sesko wants to go. Were they just putting those Saudi rumours out there to try and drive the price up for Arsenal? Most likely, even though there probably was genuine interest from Saudi, but that's probably why it came out. I think as long as they get one of them, I think it's kind of a win-win, I think, if they get one of them, because you've got two strikers that are in different phases. You can make arguments for both. I think Sesko is probably the better option, just because I think, and I said this last week, I think the winger is equally as important for Arsenal as the striker. And if Arsenal can go and get a proven quality winger, whether that is Rodrigo or whether that is someone like Matoma, who we talked about last week, or someone like that who is definitely ready to come in and hit the ground running. One, I don't think the striker matters as much, but two, it makes more sense then to go for Sesko because you're getting in that proven quality elsewhere that is more likely to make that rougher diamond in Sesko shine a little bit more, because you're taking the pressure off of him a little bit and you're supplementing him with like a weapon in Rodrigo or Matoma, for example, or Nico Williams, which sounds like isn't going to happen. Sounds like he's going to go to Bayern Munich now, apparently. you're armouring Sesko with another massive chance creation kind of outlet. So I think Sesko makes more sense, but Arsenal have still got to do that on top. But also, you could easily make the argument for Gyökeres, where it's like, I've been watching a lot of videos recently, and I kind of maybe fallen into the trap a little bit myself of like, are we just overthinking it with with Gyökeres? Like, are we doing like I saw Tobes made a video about this where he was saying like, don't go full like Rory Jennings, where it's just like, are we overthinking that? It's like the Haaland thing, you know, when he said about like he's not going to score more than 15 goals. It's like, are we overthinking his record in the Portuguese league, where it's like the guy scored 100 goals in 2 seasons? Like, are we just like, are we all kind of coming out and going, nah? Because my gut feeling is that Gyökeres flops, but I can't tell you why that is.
But it depends
Doesn't
on a
make
few
sense.
different things, though, doesn't it? Like, obviously, the whole Gyökeres situation, as you mentioned earlier, who has been linked to Manchester United, obviously, been linked to a few different clubs, is the money.
Yeah.
The second you buy a striker who supposedly like is going to be costing you like £85 million, if you believe what the sporting directors say, where they've had this falling out and there's no gentleman agreement or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
there's supposedly it was that there was a gentleman agreement you could get him for around 50.
I will say, never going through the Harry Kane saga. Don't gentlemen's agreements just don't
rubbish.
exist.
Yeah,
So.
if you're an aspiring footballer or an aspiring anything, right? Get it in writing.
Yeah.
Your manager says you're going to get a promotion. Get it in writing.
Yeah, look at Harry Kane, look at Gyökeres.
Whatever it might be, whatever job you're doing, get it in writing. Genuinely one of the biggest things I can say as a bit of advice. So not just footballers, to anybody.
Yeah.
Get it in writing. But yes, no, in terms of Gyökeres' situation, supposedly they have said like he's not going to be leaving for whatever this 50 million is. It's going to be basically close to his release clause.
Yeah.
I think he agreed that like, look, we're not going to 100% say you have to pay his release clause.
No.
But it's still got to be a lot of money. It was like 70 or something upwards, which is a lot of money to spend, right? Like the second you spend upwards of £50 million, to be honest, people start questioning. People start looking at it and going,
Especially for a
okay,
striker.
especially for a striker, and especially for a striker who, I mean, he's not like super old, is he? But he's like 26, 27. You're going to have him for 5 years. That is a long time, to be fair. I don't know why I'm doing this, but yeah, some sort of like TikTok guru. But it's a lot of money to spend on someone that then has to become like he's then going to be in the questions of does he beat Erling Haaland how many goals he scores?
Yeah.
Does he beat Isaac
The
on how many
pressure
guys?
becomes really
the pressure
big.
becomes
Yeah.
a huge, and it's not just and it's a pressure of like okay, you spend that money, he's got to win you a trophy now.
Yeah.
You've got to be winning the Premier League. You've got to be winning the Champions League or whatever it might be. You've got to be winning multiple domestic cups. Like that's the pressure that an £85 million striker adds to this Arsenal side. Like. Again, if you bring in someone like him and you bring in Matoma, maybe it then takes some pressure off Matoma and he can do a really good job with it on that left flank as well. But that's the kind of pressure that comes with this kind of signing. However, at the same time, if Arsenal don't make that kind of immediate impact signing, like a Gyökeres, like a Watkins, or to a degree, like a Sesko, there are going to be a lot of complaints from Arsenal fans. There's going to be a lot of issues. And I think that's where to a degree, you do have to bite the bullet and get one of these guys in as soon as possible.
Especially when you look at how Man City have strengthened, when you look at how Liverpool have gone out and flexed their muscle in the transfer market. I know there's a lot of chat about Liverpool spending, and it's like, oh, they're still spending the Coutinho money or whatever, but it's like Liverpool don't operate like this. They realise that City are coming back.
Yeah.
They know they've got to put their foot down to make and capitalise on this momentum they've built off the back of winning the title. So Arsenal can't afford to fall behind in that aspect. So it's so I see both sides of the coin. Both striker choices make sense, but like you said with Gyökeres, it does kind of really add that sort of pressure.
Yeah.
But then again, you could argue that I think it boils down to the fact that like I think there's going to be a lot of outside pressure and outside noise, and I will, as a Spurs fan, I will obviously get on board with the fact that Arsenal need to win something soon. They need to win something next year. You know, speaking from a point of view of being a European champion, they've got to do it. But how much do they buckle to that pressure, or do they back themselves and go, no, we are going to go for the option that we get the most longevity out of, that we can really polish into a player that's going to grow over time? And I actually, taking my Spurs hat out of it, as much as Arsenal do need to win something next season, Sesko does make more sense to me. I think it actually does, and I think sticking to your pathway and what you're trying to build. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard. I feel like Arsenal fans also keep changing their minds on it, and I think we're all going to keep changing our minds on it because such is the way that the transfer market operates now, and the rumours that you hear. There's updates every single like Fabrizio Romano's tweeting something every 3 hours about the deal, and then you're going something that puts a little bit of doubt in your mind, and you're going, oh, actually, maybe we should go for him, and oh, maybe we should go for, because they're so, and also they missed out on Sesko last summer as well, so there's been the rumour for a while, like Arsenal fans are going to keep changing their minds. But I don't know, it's so difficult. I would personally, I think Sesko does make more sense, but I see both sides of the
argument. And look, Arteta's
argument.
done a very good job, I think, at changing this Arsenal side.
Yeah.
And I would say, more often than not, his signing decision has proven to be a good one.
And he's the one that wants... Am I right in thinking
he's
he
the one that
wants
wants
Sesko?
to push for Sesko more.
You don't trust that. Like,
And especially if you're the manager, like if he believes in that striker, I think that's a very good idea to go with. Let's move on to another transfer rumour then, transfer that could possibly happen. I think it's time to talk a little bit about Jack Grealish, who's been shipped out left, right and centre. But one of the ones I thought was really interesting is a move back to Aston Villa. Obviously, Grealish is into his 30s now, had a very successful time at Manchester City in terms of trophies. Whether you believe he is a £100 million player or has lived up to that price tag is a different debate and something that you guys can have at home.
Yeah.
But he's been left out of the Club World Cup squad. And City are definitely going to try and move him on. City supposedly want close to £50 million for him, which I think is just really, to be honest, quite ridiculous. Like, the guy doesn't play for you. Everyone knows he's not going to play for you. You've proven that he's not going to be in your squad. So it's a lot of money to ask for. He is homegrown, I guess, and so that is interesting. He's the two clubs that I thought were very interesting he was linked to. One was Aston Villa, also Everton, supposedly as well,
like that.
which is interesting. But for Jack Grealish and one of these clubs, where do you think he suits more? Is it about going home, returning, and kind of going back to Villa and finding his roots, and arguably his roots of how he plays football best?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure that comes with going to Everton. Everton probably do need more than just one Jack Grealish in order to improve that side. Do you think Villa's the right way to go about it?
I kind of prefer the Everton move, to be honest.
Really?
Just because I think I don't. The thing is with Villa is that it makes total sense for him to go back somewhere that he does feel genuinely loved. But he felt like he was loved at City anyway. Like, the fans always backed him. Guardiola, for the most part, backed him as well. He made him £100 million signing. And City fans, I think, were the ones that were always pushing, and rightly so, by the way, like pushing this kind of.
We forget that season he had before he moved to City, how good he was.
And also like the treble season, he was super good, super effective. Like, played such an important role in that City team. That's not to say that someone else couldn't have done that, but you still have to acknowledge what Grealish did do. Villa is an interesting one because I think to go, like, we all want to see Grealish play his best football, and maybe you could argue that he'd do that at Villa. The narrative is really nice as well, and Emery does have a track record of being able to improve players and kind of get players' careers almost like back on track. Rashford did well at Villa, I think. Like, the numbers might not suggest that he was amazing, but like, I think you definitely saw more of a Marcus Rashford at Villa. Same with Asensio, obviously, as well, and he's kind of got previous before that at other clubs and in terms of improving players. So that's fun. Again, the way that Villa play, if you can get him playing centrally, I think it really works. He
can fit in that really easy. He can even dovetail with Morgan Rogers quite nicely.
Yeah.
Like, there's a nice
I do
balance
worry
there.
The only thing with Grealish at Villa is that obviously that's quite an intense system that is, relies on physicality. He has had quite a few injury problems over the last few years, which is something that, to be fair, and again, there's always going to be scrutiny around a £100 million player, but I do think that's something that gets ignored a bit with Grealish because people do want to push the narrative all the time of the fact that he's been a flop.
Yeah.
And I understand that, and you can definitely make the case for that, but I think it was especially last season, season just gone, the season City last won the title, 23-24, he had a lot of injury problems, and really, really struggled. So that would be a bit of a worry, I think, at Villa with how intense they play, and if he was playing centrally, the focus on ball carrying and driving with the ball constantly, and I would be a bit worried about that. But Everton just feels good to me. I don't really know why. Like, it feels like a club that's kind of got their spark back a little bit under Moyes. Got their kind of he's reignited the fans, got the fans back on side. They're moving into the new stadium, a move that shows a bit of ambition, I think, as well. Like, whether they got the money to spend 50 million on Jack Grealish is another thing. Could you get a loan with an option, maybe something like that? He feels like an Everton kind of player in the sense that, and this is why I love Iliman and Jai as well, by the way, because it's like Everton always had, when I was growing up under Moyes, they always had those kind of mavericks and like players that, it was always quite a functional system that relied on good defending, etc. But Everton always had players that were like really got you off your seat, and maybe Grealish could be a return to that. Moyes, again, is good at kind of revitalising players and turning players around. And I'd quite like to maybe see him there. But Villa also does make sense. There's been other links as well with Spurs. Again, I'm not... that's always been a thing because it's like we tried to sign him. And
years ago.
I've kind of pushed for that a bit in the past, but I think maybe this is the one... This is summer probably Spurs leave that alone, which is probably... makes it the summer that Spurs are most likely to do it, knowing what we operate like. But yeah, I think Villa, West Ham was another shout as well. I think we put forward a while back.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
But Villa and Everton seem to be the kind of two most concrete. But I like them both, but I think I probably prefer Everton.
Well, one of the other ones for Aston Villa was very kind of out of the blue. They're definitely looking at a winger. There was links for Jadon Sancho as well, which I think Man United are going to have to try and figure out what to do with him going into his final year. But also Mark Onder ter Stegen for the goalkeeper, obviously Barcelona. There have come reports as well that he himself doesn't want to leave until he's paid the money that's owed to him from Barcelona and so on and so forth. It looks as if like Martinez may end up leaving Aston Villa this summer as well.
Like
so they're going to be needing a goalkeeper. And that is quite a big position for Aston Villa. Like, look, say what you want about Martinez. I know people think he isn't quite the best goalkeeper in the world, and I would agree to that. But he has been very important for Aston Villa.
Yeah, so a very good Prem goalie that's worthy of playing European football.
Exactly. And so they would need a good quality goalkeeper in order to replace that. And look, Onder ter Stegen is a little bit older, but he would definitely tick that box, I'm pretty sure, and fill that need quite easily. I do think they could also think a little bit more outside the box and go for someone a little bit younger.
Yeah.
We've mentioned a few times, Chevalier is a very exciting keeper. We've seen obviously Trafford linked to Newcastle. Petrovic of Chelsea is obviously not going to the Club World Cup because he wants to move. He's someone that could be available here.
Yeah.
I think Onder ter Stegen is obviously had an incredible career and is a great goalkeeper, but he's injury prone. He is into his 30s. He is going to probably be on high wages. This is somebody who I think is an idea you'd probably have... It's not the end of the world if they sign him, but I just think within a year or two you're going to be looking at his replacement, whereas you could deal with that situation right now when there are young goalkeepers available who could be on top form.
Yeah.
And so, or available for a cheaper price right now, whilst not everybody out there in the world is looking for a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, ter Stegen, I think, is fine if they end up getting him, but I do think it's an important position they need to get right going forward. I think Villa are under a lot of pressure this year for the financial issues if they have to end up selling players to replace them. And also obviously missing out on Champions League football, I think, is quite a disappointment for a lot of Villa fans. They can, I believe, go quite far in the Europa League.
They should win that, or
Definitely.
should get to the last stage.
100%, and that would be a huge achievement for them. However, I can also see a few players of theirs thinking about possible next destinations.
Yeah,
I
saw Kamara
did
sort of did he do like it was even an interview or something where he said that like ideally I want to be playing Champions League football and all this kind of stuff. I mean, Kamara will be a massive loss because this guy's one of the most underrated midfielders in the Premier League.
Got him on a free as well.
And Villa maybe look at that and the fact that we didn't pay anything for him. Maybe they
pure profit.
Yeah, it's like they're bringing in that money. It's like any Premier League club should be looking at Kamara if they wanted to sign a defensive midfielder that's good on the ball, good at breaking up play. I'm not sure he will leave, to be honest. I think like all he said was ideally I want to be playing Champions League football. That doesn't mean that he can't then do that next season with Villa if they win the Europa League. So ter Stegen's a funny one. Like I think there's a reason why Barcelona signed, is it Johan Garcia? New goalkeeper just come in, a bit younger.
Everyone was after him as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
Those people been after him.
ter Stegen, ter Stegen never really, for me, lived up to the hype.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's a good goalie.
I think
but
he's probably one of the best in the world at one point. Genuinely.
Yeah, it may be. Like I don't know. Like maybe it's recency bias. To be fair, I think it probably is because this season he has been shaky. Like I think. There was the game they lost in the last game of the season to Villarreal where he was like doing star jumps on the line instead of like blocking the shot. He was like just a bit like all over the place and just like I don't know. I've never been as massive on ter Stegen as maybe some other people, and I think Barcelona had to replace him. I think it was a good move to do that. Someone a bit younger, someone a really high rated goalkeeper in Garcia. So again, maybe that's just recency bias a bit, but I'm surprised Villa didn't go in for Garcia. To be fair, I think that's something that maybe could
be
have
honest.
done.
I think everyone under the sun
Arsenal
was
wanted him
him
as well, didn't they? I
looking
think.
at him, I mean, Arsenal were looking at him to be their sub goalkeeper,
which he wasn't
or
gonna
challenge
do.
rater, and he wasn't going to do.
Now they've got Kepa. Also, I think with Barcelona, I'm not saying ter Stegen wasn't the reason they didn't win the Champions League or whatever, but it's like I think it was an upgrade that kind of needed to be made. So I think they should be happy with that. Obviously, they had Chesney as well. Ter Stegen also spent a lot of time out injured, to be fair to him, at Barca as
and
well.
That's part of the issue as well. But he's been there for a long time. And so I think I'm interested to see what Barca's fans' opinions are of him, actually. Let us know in the comments below. Manchester United, as always, linked to every player under the sun. Victor Gyökeres being one of them. They also are still yet to make a decision on their goalkeeper themselves. Obviously, Onana had a bad year.
Yeah.
That was his second season at Manchester United. Do you think they need to be replacing him? They've been linked to Bolka from Nice, who actually think would be a very unlike Man United move.
Yeah.
But it would be quite a smart move. He's had some stellar seasons in France. He's been looked at by a few teams as well. Again, I think if Aston Villa are looking at a keeper, they should be looking at him as well. But do you think they should be replacing Onana? And should it be Bolka?
Yeah. I think Bolka would be a good option. I think Onana has to be upgraded. Again, it's a difficult one with Onana because you're more disappointed because of the standards that he has set. I know he's obviously had shaky moments the whole time he has been at Man United, but when he's at his best, he can be a really good goalkeeper, like incredible shot stopper. But I just think that, and also the thing that would frustrate me about Onana, I think as a United fan, is that I think he believes that he is maybe better than he is, and I think that would frustrate me a little bit. He kind of comes out and says these things sometimes, and you're just like, please just perform better. It's like we know that it's in you. Stop making these silly mistakes. And I think it's an obvious upgrade.
Where do you think for Manchester United? Because I think in terms of the title of what the signings you can't miss out on, there's loads. They can't miss out on any signing, to be honest. They have bought in what feels like it's done in terms of, it is done in Cunha.
Yeah.
Feels like in Bournemouth is done.
Late hijack,
maybe like there are those rumours, but then if you believe what the journalists are saying, they all say no, he wants United, he only wants United, or whatever. So that's done. So that is almost left attacking mid, right attacking mid, done. Tick box, can't pick them. Where do you think in terms of the list of positions next needed is the most important? Is striker number one? Is goalkeeper number one? Full-back is an option. Midfield is still an option.
Yeah.
Centre-back is technically still an option.
I think
probably a better area. But what is the order? Like, what is the number one position that should be sorted out next?
I think defensive midfielder or a wing back. I'd probably go defensive midfielder.
Over
striker right now. I understand that United do
goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think so. I think, don't get me wrong, I think United need a striker, but is it worth the? But again, like this, people are always going to talk about where's this money coming from United. Like they do obviously have
their PSR's actually not too bad.
Their PSR's quite healthy. But it's also where's the cash coming from? Yeah. But that cash also might be coming from players' sales further down the line. Pure profit sales of Garnacho, Rashford, maybe Kobbie Mainoo as well. Who knows? Especially if they do sign a defensive midfielder. But I do think, again, what United have done quite well in this transfer market so far is sign players that really suit the profile of what Amorim wants to do with that system, and he's wedded to that system. He has made that abundantly clear, and he's not going to change. Also, the good thing is, on the flip side of that, is that if Amorim was to get sacked at some point, they've also just brought in Premier League proven quality. But I think adding on top of that, I think the right wing back role is really crucial. Even though Ahmad, I think, is probably going to start there, I don't mind that whatsoever. But there are also going to be games where you need someone who is a bit more defensively solid, more of a traditional wing back, where you can play Ahmad inside the pitch, leave Mbeumo on the bench, or maybe play him on the left or somewhere else. Like you need that option. And I just think with that, Mazraoui's okay. I think I like Mazraoui as a squad option as well because he can shuffle into a back three. I think that's absolutely fine. Keep Mazraoui definitely. But Dalot, I just don't. Again, Dalot's okay, but I think this is, if Man United want to get back up there, I think signing a right wing back who's just good, up and down, defensively solid, proven in that position, proven in that system would be good. I think defensive midfield is slightly more important though. Maybe someone like Hjulmand from Sporting, who's played under Amorim, understands the role of what he's going to be asked to do, understands the specifics of it. Centre back, I actually think it's kind of the least of United's worries at the moment because I think De Ligt actually had a decent, okay season.
You know who I liked as well? Heaven.
Yeah.
I thought obviously they got him. They got him from Arsenal in terms of the academy. He every time he played, I thought did a really good job for a youngster. It was a big shame that who had a lot of pressure on him. He's done well. I could see him, and from what I've also seen pictures of him in this postseason already, like trying to understand the position more. Like he's doing like video analysis and everything.
Saw that, yeah.
I think it's really, really impressive. I was generally quite impressed by him when he was playing. So I would agree. I think actually centre backs they've got plenty.
Yeah.
And they do have, as you said, Mazraoui. You can play right centre back when needed in the back three. I would actually say full back goes down the option for me. Okay. I think striker is huge.
Yeah.
I think if Man United went into next season with Onana in goal, I'm not super against it if it means they get a good striker.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think there is one of the most frustrating things about Onana is we have seen him play incredibly well. The guy has made it to a Champions League final. He made it to a Champions League semi-final when he was at Ajax. Like, he has had really, really impressive games. He was good against Man City in that final.
Yeah.
We've seen him have good games for Man United. He does just lose his head. Like, he really does. And his confidence, my God, it goes so easily. I think what United do need to do is make a decision quite soon, because we mentioned earlier, this is a market where goalkeepers are available. Mm-hmm. There are options out there who aren't maybe the most expensive. We saw Chelsea go for Mike Maignan and battling over 23 million.
Yeah,
United should be looking at him. 100% they should be looking at him. I think United and Ter Stegen, like, if the deal isn't expensive, have a look at him, like, especially if it's just a stopgap for now, or for next season. If you go into next season, it's like, okay, you've got Onana and Ter Stegen as your options. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
So I think they should be looking at that. I do think striker, though, is the most important, personally.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's striker, goalkeeper, DM, fullback. I think they're going to go with Ahmad, that right wing back. If you bring him in Bournemouth, you can't not be playing in Bournemouth, and you can't not be playing Ahmad.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially when they're not playing in the European football, it's one game a week. Like, exactly. I do. That is true. I think with wing back, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the priority, but I do think having someone where you can change in game and move Ahmad,
it would help.
Because you could argue Ahmad's best position isn't there, but United actually probably do play better when he does play there. So it's a bit of a weird one. Also, I think maybe with the striker thing, and I think I was kind of saying this when we were talking about Gyökeres and Sesko at Arsenal. Maybe with Gyökeres, I am probably guilty, and I think a lot of people are guilty of overthinking it a little bit. Yeah. And he, at the end of the day, he's going to be, whether he gets 30 goals or not, he's going to be better than Højlund. He's going to be better than Højlund. So it's like,
if Man United pull off a summer where they bring in Gyökeres, Cunha, and Bournemouth, and say they just end the summer with those three, having had no Champions League football and the worst season of their entire career. Entire time.
Studies need to be made.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's absolutely outrageous. That's an incredible window. I'm sure an expensive window at the same time, but an incredible window. And then if they're able to add a goalkeeper and a midfielder on top of that, that's really, really well done and impressive. And obviously, I think we're going to have to be interested to see where Garnacho's future will be, Kobe Mainu as well. That will all be very interesting, but that would be highly impressive. But yeah, let us know your rankings as well for what is the most important positions for Man United to be fixing. I'm sure we'll do a longer video on that and generally around the league. Let's jump over to Nottingham Forest. I think that's a really interesting place. Obviously, do have a form of European football in the Conference League next season. Does seem like Nuno will be staying. At least that's what we've heard at the moment. No other kind of rumours has followed out since that rumour about him possibly leaving. And their transfer window, I think, is going to be quite a big one this year, or it should be quite a big one. They should definitely capitalise on the success they had last season. It seems like Gibbs White, now that City have kind of done their business, won't be at least being targeted by them. Who knows? There's a last minute.
There was a little link to Spurs last night, but I'd be surprised.
That'd be good fun. That'd be good fun.
I would like it. I just think I can't.
I don't know quite who. Like, someone of Madison and Kulusevski are going to be disappointed, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so maybe he stays. But their transfer rumours so far, it seems like Evelyn Dicker, the centre-back, wants to get Roma. I think Spurs have actually been linked to him as well, but I think they've been linked to basically every centre-back under the sun. Is available for £34 million. I think they are looking to kind of add quality depth to their squad now, which is a very smart thing to do. I think the right thing to do. Look, Milinkovic and Murillo are fantastic. Yeah. You're going to have to do some job to get in ahead of them. But they do need some depth now. Willy Bolly, I don't know if he signed the new contract or they released him.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But that's kind of where the depth was looking. And whilst he has had good seasons, for what Forest are looking to do, he's maybe not the right guy. I think Evan Dicker is someone who'd be great to be bringing in from Roma. And one of the more bigger issues is left wing back for Forest. Obviously, we've seen Moreno go back to Villa. We've seen Toffolo being released by Forest. So that left wing back, obviously, Ola Reiner is the right wing back, and then Nico Williams is the left wing back. But they need cover, they need options.
And Williams was also playing out of position by playing there as well. Yes, he's not
very
that
true.
Side.
Yeah, very true. Did a fantastic job though, has to be said. Tsimikas though is the rumour from Liverpool, and you know what? I think that's a really nice. I think that's a really nice move.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Because I think Liverpool, I think there was a lot of, because Robertson had this kind of season where, oh God, like everyone realised, oh God, he's a bit over the hill. Like he's probably done at his best now. I think a lot of people thought that he was going to, a lot of people thought that he was probably going to leave. But actually, I think they'll probably keep Robertson and maybe look to offload Tsimikas.
Yeah. I think that's the right thing.
I think that's the right thing. Bit of experience with Robertson still there, and I think Tsimikas would be anybody that does need a left back, whether that's a starting one, whether you're in that middle chunk of the table from like maybe like 7th or 8th down, or whether you're just looking to bolster the squad. If you're at any position in the league, really, you could do a lot worse than Tsimikas.
I don't think it'll be costly either. Like it's
20-30 mil, maybe
less. Yeah,
maybe. Like I think that makes sense. Good going forward. Good defensively. Like good on transition. I think
he could work in that's the way they play football as well. He'd work quite well in.
I like Tsimikas. I think a lot of Liverpool fans probably would be quite almost not sad to see him go, but they would know that they're, for Forest, like they'd know they're selling them a good Premier League proven quality option. So I think Forest fans should be happy if that manifests itself. Yeah, definitely. I like Tsimikas.
Yeah. Obviously, I still think they need to look up front. Like Chris Wood had a stellar season last year. Not saying he didn't. I'm not saying it's going to go wrong next year either. But Chris Wood is getting on. Yeah, he is older. I think they should be looking, and it seems like obviously. Who's the striker that obviously got that sad injury? Awoniyi. They don't quite know what's happening there. They do need to be thinking about another forward option. They looked in January at getting Cunha in, so they themselves are thinking about this. I think that's a position for them they should be looking at as well. And I'm sure they will too. Like again, it's worth noting, it's still so early in the transfer window that I think everyone's just kind of on their summer break right now, enjoying the sun. Let's mention Liverpool then, because Wirtz. Done.
So good.
Here we go. Looks like it's going to be the most expensive Premier League move ever. A lot of pressure, I think, on his shoulders now. Like this is, I can't remember if I've said it before on video or not. He's one of the most fun players I've ever watched live. Yeah. One of the most exciting players I've ever seen live in the flesh. Messi's number one for me.
Yeah.
He's not
it's hard
too
to
bad
beat
there,
that.
But Wirtz, I saw him play not the season just gone, but the season before when Leverkusen won the league in that last game.
Oh right, yeah.
And he was so good, man. Like he had this. It felt like for the first 20 minutes, I didn't really notice him. No. And then picks up the ball from 40 yards, dribbles a little bit, shoots from 35, goes in. Yeah. And you're like, oh my god, this guy's like really, really good. And so I'm super excited to see him join the Premier League. But look, that price tag is heavy.
Yeah.
We've seen what happens to other players. Every player that joins for £100 million is crucified. Jack Grealish, Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo. Who are some other players that I'm thinking of £100 million?
Even like maybe not the £100 million bracket, but I've seen a lot of United fans being like, we hope Wirtz gets the Pogba treatment of like, you know, almost
most
like
expensive price.
People kept referencing the Graham Souness things. Of like, I think Pogba got 4 assists in one game once, and Souness was like, that should be the standard. Yeah. It's like there is. I know it wasn't £100 million, but it's close to it. And I think it's not even just going to be from the media. I think a lot of rival fans are going to be like, okay, well, this is how you talked about Palmer. This is how you talked about this player, Liverpool fan. So like, we're going to come for you if Wirtz doesn't have a good season or like a good game.
Especially as it has been said. I mean, it's been said by Jurgen Klopp himself, right? That Liverpool don't spend money. They're not the one. They're not the club that go and spend £100 million, right?
Yeah. He kind of referenced City and Chelsea, didn't he? It was like,
exactly. And look, you're now the leading. They will now be the leading club for most expensive transfer. And I'm not saying it's like a bad transfer at all. I think it's an amazing transfer. The guy is electric. He's so good. However, we've already seen it happen. We saw people online anyway putting criticism to him for not beating Gusto once in the Germany-France game. Like,
some of the slander names.
This is what's going to happen. And the Premier League is a very different league from the Bundesliga. Yeah, very, very. I've mentioned it before, and I know people, and there was a couple people that criticised it in the comments where I said, look, how many Bundesliga transfers are hits in the Premier League?
Yeah, not
apart from Erling Haaland, which I kind of felt personally was always going to be a guarantee hit.
Yeah.
And you're genuinely thinking back, but after that, to Kevin De Bruyne. And that is over a decade ago.
Yeah. There's been like a few in that middling section have done that.
Heung-min Son, 2012.
Yeah. That was only we signed Son for like 25 million.
But like
so
I think
it was like a big transfer.
So like big transfer
also,
fees.
Son took a season to adjust.
Yes,
like,
he did.
He did not have a good first season at all.
He did.
Rumours of him leaving, so it takes a while.
No,
like,
it genuinely does. It genuinely does. And look, I'm not saying that as a criticism to be like the Bundesliga is rubbish. Not at all. I think there's some fantastic players there, but I think the Bundesliga is a very different league to what the Premier League is. It's so much more transitional. I think at times there's so much more space for players to run into. It's why you see the likes of some of their best players in Nkunku or Havertz at times, when I think Havertz is a slightly different issue because I think he's very young when he's in the Bundesliga and almost growing still when he joined Chelsea. But Nkunku, for instance, was someone who was so transitional and so incredibly great in the Premier League because of him being a good transitional player. Joins the Premier League where it's a lot different at times and a lot more low blocks that you're coming up against, a lot less room, I think, to play against, and it doesn't quite work out. And look, for a Liverpool side where they are going to be having more possession, having teams sit back against them, and I think teams aren't going to maybe underestimate them as much as they did this season, it's going to be difficult. And I'm not saying he's going to struggle. I'm not saying that now. But I just think it's a different pressure. Like, it's a different pressure. We just spoke about Jack Grealish and how there's still question marks over whether he was successful at Man City after he won the treble. This is the level it's going to get to Wirtz. And I genuinely do hope, from a footballing love, but I hope he succeeds here because he's genuinely one of my favourite players to watch.
Same. And I think one thing that's also not going to help Wirtz as well, and again, this is kind of like, I think people underestimate I spoke about the media just then and the pressure that they're going to put on, but like, even like rival fans and like in terms of like people talking like content creators and stuff like that, the noise that adds up and the fact that people love to keep receipts nowadays, don't they? And it's like they're gonna say, like, you said this about this player. Where there's this kind of one narrative that's kind of manifested itself online is this Cherky versus Wirtz thing as well, and where Cherky was signed for 35 mil and Wirtz was 150 million euros. That's not going to help Wirtz as well, in the sense that people are going to go, City have got the much better deal for like a player that, might not be as talented, but is like, up there maybe with Wirtz in some people's eyes, which, is that true? I don't know. But that's not going to help it. But I think Wirtz, like, I'm so excited to see it because I think he, I think what I really like about the signing is that it really embodies like the start of Slot's Liverpool. And you can't just take away what they did last season, the league title, but people were too quick to say, oh, it's what Klopp did and Slot's kind of just taken over. Slot won them the league at the end of the day. So it's like that was his team, 100%. But where they only signed Chiesa, like, Slot is making serious moves to put his fingerprints all over this team. And I think what I love about Liverpool's midfield now, with Wirtz chucking in there as an option as well, is that balance of like technical quality and physicality in that midfield, when you've got Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, really powerful runners, McAllister as well, covers so much ground, but he's so technically gifted, and then you're adding Wirtz on top of that as well. It's so fascinating to see how they're going to set up, but how those players, like, you could just see them combining with each other really, really nicely. It's such a good blend of technical quality and physical dominance in that midfield, which could allow Wirtz more space. You think about how quickly Liverpool moved the ball through the thirds with Gravenberch being able to get through the press, which will afford Wirtz more time and space, which you might not get against other teams, or maybe in other teams, with players around him that aren't at that level of quality. So I think he'll do really well. Whether it's like I think people look at 150 million.
He could get 10 goals, 10 assists. Yeah. Right. And that is a great season.
It's not enough for 120.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But then if he does that for like
very true,
very long, it's like
very true.
He's gonna be class.
And I'm, I have to say, like, Liverpool getting their business done early as always. Like, they're not playing in the Club World Cup. They're gonna have a strong pre-season. I think they're gonna be some team next year. I really do. I mean, we'll see what happens again. It's been a lot of changes, as you mentioned already. About it is becoming Slot's team. I still think they're gonna probably sign. I'd like to think maybe a player or two still.
Yeah.
There's those rumours about Diaz possibly moving as well.
Yeah.
They still think they need a striker too.
Nunes turning down Saudi was terrible for
I can see a João Pedro last-minute move to Liverpool, I think.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I feel, but we'll see. But yeah, that was more, I guess, talking about Liverpool. Kirkes, though, I guess, because we'll say that the deal is done for Wirtz, so we can't really count that one as much. Kirkes, though, is a deal I think they can't miss out on. I don't think they will. It looks like it's going to be done by the time this video is done. But it's just future-proofing that side. As we mentioned already, Robertson's there to kind of help put the armour on the shoulder when needed. They're going to be some attacking side, man. Frimpong on the right, Kirkes on the left. That's another thing as well that's worth mentioning. Frimpong and Wirtz' like relationship, that's such a nice thing to have and
Yeah.
join to this side. They already know each other really well. They know how each other work. It's the names in that side next season: Frimpong, Wirtz to join Alisson, Van Dijk, and Salah.
It's a joke.
Whilst also Kirkes having a very good year. I could see McAllister obviously unbelievably well. Konate, like. I genuinely think it's they're going to be frightening next year. But we'll move on to another team then in Crystal Palace. That's what we're talking about. Looks like Europe is confirmed. Ollie Thomas, I'm
Such
sure.
a nonsense.
Fist pumping at home. But one of the transfers I think is really, really interesting. We actually mentioned him last week. There are rumours about Gehi leaving, and it looks like they're trying to get his replacement in right now. And it's a transfer they definitely can't miss out on. Diamonde.
Yeah, I like it.
What a move that'll be! What a move that'll be!
Yeah, has played in a back three for Sporting for a while under Amrin, new manager as well. 21 years old. Is he left-footed or is he?
He's right-footed.
Right-footed.
He's right-footed.
Okay, so he can
strong in the air.
Yeah.
Like he is a hell of a player, man.
Yeah, can do what Gay he does play on probably in any of those positions in the back three. That was one of what Gay's biggest strengths was, I think, about being able to play left side centre back, central centre back, right centre back. Obviously, with Gay, you lose an element of leadership, definitely. But also, I think there's enough. I think I look at Lacroix, and I know he's young, 22, 20. Like Lacroix is such a strong character in that team. Like
Richards this year, man, had a huge step up.
They've got Chadi Riyad to come back as well, who again is obviously young. But I think losing Gahey, now they bought Lacroix. He was brilliant for Palace for most of last season. And he's such a strong character. I don't think you have to worry about that leadership so much. So you can maybe bring in someone who's a bit younger. Even though Lacroix's young, as that experience. And this team have won a trophy as well. Like they've got enough. They've got that kind of not monkey off their back because no one has ever put in pressure on Palace to win something necessarily. But like that squad, then the shoulders just stand that little bit taller, don't they? They're just like, no, we've actually done this. Like, and they've also got players like Will Hughes and stuff still there. So obviously it is a loss for Gay in terms of that. But this is a squad that is together, and Mateta's a leader from the front as well. Like
Eze, if he's still there,
Eze, yeah, exactly. So I think Gay is obviously a big loss, but I think one thing Palace have always done well, like even when you look at when they lost to Lise, brought in Ismail Sarr. Okay, at the start things didn't click that well, but and he's a totally different player to him in terms of style. But bang, second half of the season was unstoppable. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer for Palace in terms of whether there are any more sales. They're going to keep hold of Wharton as well, which I think is massive. But in terms of replacing Gahey, in terms of the transfer they can't miss out on, Diamonde makes a lot of sense.
It would be fantastic. Like you have to look at the last recent business over the last few years of Palace and just clap your hands. Like Dougie Freeman has done such an incredible job.
Are they losing Freedman though?
Yeah,
is that happening?
Supposedly he's moving to.
I think it was Saudi, wasn't it?
Was it? Oh,
I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure he's meant to be leaving, but he's obviously done an incredible job. Quickly, mate, do you have to go by 12 or are you okay to say?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. You're right, Al. But one other transfer I thought was really fun. Again, Palace have a really good ability to pick up strong players from the Championship, bring them in to the Premier League. We've seen that with Elise. We've seen that with Eze. They've brought in January Roman Esse from Millwall, who I think was a little bit disappointed with maybe his playing time in the end. We saw those comments. There might have been a little bit of friction between him and Glasner for basically not featuring as much.
He'll get it though, especially when they've got Europe.
Exactly. Plus, they are looking at someone who I mentioned back in January for a move for Southampton, I think it was, but Finn Azaz, someone who's had a fantastic year now, several years in the Championship. This fantastic attacking kind of midfield, attacking player, really kind of play across different positions. Leeds are looking at him as well. It's a very smart move, but for Palace, they just seem to pick always the right Championship player, bring him in, and eventually in a year and a half, 2 years, he's this star in the making. Azaz is a little bit older. But can definitely suit the Premier League and suit kind of Palace's way of playing. And I wouldn't put it past them for him to be another successful move. Playing for Middlesbrough, a team have obviously just lost their manager, a little bit disappointed maybe how the season went in the end.
Yeah,
and could be available, I think, for like a fair fee. Someone I think they understand other clubs will be looking at. And to be honest, I think he'll be playing in the Premier League next year, whatever happens. Whether it's for Leeds, whether it's for Palace, somebody's going to get him because he is a Premier League quality player.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a fantastic move as well. Like,
I like
just
it.
Palace doing what Palace do and continuing to smash it in the transfer market.
Yeah, I think one area as well they probably should be looking at left wing back.
You're not a massive fan of Mitchell, are you? And I agree that like Mitchell's not incredible.
Yeah.
But I do think Mitchell allows Munoz to thrive.
Yeah, he does. He does, to be fair.
But I think you're wrong by also saying that like they could look to improve.
I think for depth as well as much as anything, and it's an upgradable
Yeah.
position. I think they should never unless they would bring in 2 players over the course of the next 3 years. They shouldn't necessarily look to sell Mitchell, not at all, because he's really solid and can do a job. But maybe if you're thinking about the evolution of that Palace team, maybe someone that is maybe a bit more attack-minded, or someone who is defensively better than Mitchell but still does allow Munoz to thrive. If they don't end the window without signing one, so if they end the window without signing one, it's not a blot on Palace whatsoever. But I think it's an area maybe they should look at.
Okay. Well, then let's get on to your beloved Lily White.
For my sins,
Now, to be honest, there are a million transfer rumours for Spurs. I think right now, to be fair, all the headlines are obviously about Thomas Frank and his possible move, which we've spoken about a few times. We both think is a great move.
Yep.
And I'm really, really interested to see kind of how he develops in a bigger role at Tottenham. There were the rumours about Mbumu to Spurs. Don't think that's
can't say that to be honest.
We've mentioned obviously to United. So I wanted to say, what was out of all the rumours you've seen so far, what is one that you think Spurs can't miss out on?
It's a difficult one. Interestingly, all of the solid rumours that we've kind of have are all like Premier League players, which seem to be shopping kind of in the Premier League, which I think is a good thing in terms of the fact that this squad just does need that added sprinkling of extra quality, especially with Champions League football next season. We've been linked with Eze again. We've been linked with Antoine Semenyo as well, which we've been linked with Semenyo for a while, but we've also been linked with Jared Branthwaite quite a lot. I think the priority position for me for Spurs going into the summer, though, kind of hinges on... I think we do definitely need another attacker. I think that's definitely someone like Semenyo would make a lot of sense in terms of his ability to play right and left. I think he could explode under Frank as well, like in that kind of Mbeumo role if you can't get Mbeumo. So direct, good presser, good at cutting in. I think with Semenyo, you wouldn't know what foot he is. Such a good ball striker on both feet, such a good dribbler on both feet as well in terms of his ability to drive inside and go the other way. I think Semenyo, the more I kind of think about it, would make a lot of sense. I really want to bury Eze because I think I love him. I've loved him so long. We tried to do that deal last summer. It kind of fell through because of the release clause. There's a lot of chat behind the scenes that Spurs are still pushing really hard for him this summer, and they feel like this is the one they're confident they might actually get it done, which excites me a lot. I also think if Spurs were to lose Romero, a centre-back is obviously a priority. I also think if we lose Romero, it's not just about replacing him, but in another position, it's about replacing what you lose with him on the ball. And I think that's when like a number 6, which Spurs should be targeting anyway, but like someone who is really good at progressing the ball out from the back in midfield, like a deep line kind of playmaker. Someone like it's not going to happen, someone like a Wharton, that kind of profile, who's good at breaking it up, but it's so good at just getting it gone quickly through the thirds. So like that should be, if we were to lose Romero, that profile of centre-back really becomes a priority for me.
Do you think it's tough still, though, but that you don't know what Frank's going to do? Because Frank is so multi-dimensional, because he can play a possession-based game, because he can play a transitional game, because he can go 3 at the back, 4 at the back. It is tough to kind of almost be like, okay, we need this. Oh, we should do this. We should do that. Yeah. It is difficult. I think it is quite difficult.
It's difficult, but there's also like, if you, say for argument's sake, if you were to, which I think is most likely, if you were to base it off of Brentford last season, that 4-2-3-1 system, which they used for most of the season, to be fair, it was kind of the year before where they predominantly played at 5 at the back. They've evolved every year, which is actually I think, like you said, in terms of transfer targets, it doesn't necessarily help you that much, but in terms of that excitement maybe of not knowing how you're going to play actually adds to it, I think, for me as a Spurs fan. I'm excited to see what he does, because one thing Frank does do is profiles players really well and gets the best out of them.
I think Solanke's going to score a lot of goals.
And also I think his overall game will probably improve as well in terms of having runners in behind him. If you do base it off of that 4-2-3-1 kind of setup at Brentford, I think James Maddison should be licking his lips as well in terms of playing actually as an out-and-out number 10. Like that's what Damsgaard kind of did last year with that solid anchor of Norgard and Janel or Yarmouk as well in there at times. Maddison kind of getting that freedom in that number 10 position is something that should really excite him and excites me. That's why I think Eze makes a lot of sense, because with Maddison, his biggest detriment is his ability to stay fit. And if you bring in Eze, who's someone that can play out wide, or if you want to play it 3 at the back at times, can play a little bit more as an inside forward, as a winger. If you want to have a wing back going round him in a Doggy or Spence or whatever, that suits Eze really nicely. But Eze would also get a lot of game time, probably playing in as a natural number 10 because Maddison isn't always available. We got linked to Gibbs White yesterday. It's clear they're looking for a number 10.
I saw you also linked to one of my favourite players in the world, Xavi Simons.
Yes.
You've been linked to him.
Oh, that would be unbelievable. I just can't.
Could play different positions, like could play all across that forward line.
There's a bit of a debate going on in the fan base at the moment of like Eze or Simons. It's really
okay, then let's have this debate now. Then, like the transfer signing you can't miss out on.
Barry Eze, I think for
you
me.
Think Eze?
I think that's emotionally kind of driven as well.
Yeah,
I just love the guy.
I
absolutely love him. But I think improving that attack is something that Spurs do need to do. Even though we scored a lot of goals last season, we did do that. But I can't miss out on. I wouldn't be. I don't know. I think it's difficult. I think, again, there's a lot of dominoes in this kind of situation. Like, if we were to lose Romero, the signing we can't miss out on for me is not actually a centre-back. It's like a properly good deep-line playmaker midfielder to break through those lines. If we keep Romero, that's not as important. I think that midfielder then shifts more to a profile of someone that just is really good at breaking up play. João Paulinho, I think that experience would make a lot of sense. Bayern Munich could get him on a cut price deal with the fact they don't really want him. There's a lot. I think it's hard to nail it down for Spurs as the one we can't miss out on because there's so many moving parts. But I'm just going to say Eze because I just love the guy. Okay. Look at when he played for England the other day, like that little flick round the corner to like Gibbs White. It's just a joke.
He would be immense. Yeah. And adding a core, like I think Frank loves his core players as well. I think you can see Eze quite easily fitting into that and suiting that. The other side of it as well, we mentioned it before about Spurs, is that you've got to find at the moment players who see Spurs as a great place to be.
Yeah,
like that's one of the things that I think Ange did a good job at that and trying to convince his players that this is amazing to be at Spurs. Like, this is part of it,
and that was, and be the guys to win the trophy. That was kind of his sold.
Be the guys to do it. And I think I'd like to think Frank would continue that kind of energy about like being the guy to do it. Like, as much as I love Xavi Simons has been at every huge club in the world right now. He's been at PSG. He's been at Barcelona. Obviously, he's spent his time at RB Leipzig right now. In his head, I don't know if Spurs is the team that he's thinking about.
I think he would. I think there's a chance that he'd come to Spurs, but I still think he'd see Spurs as a destination to then rebuild his career to go back somewhere else.
Exactly.
Bigger,
That's what you slightly worry about with him. Whereas like even Brendan Johnson was saying it in his interviews where like, oh, when he joined Spurs, all his mates were laughing. They're like, oh, you're not going to win anything at Spurs.
Madison was the same.
And he proved them wrong. Like, that's what he said. Oh, I'll prove them wrong. And I wonder whether Xavi Simons like thinks about it that well. However, also part of these players is about like offering the project to them, offering them the wages, offering them the lifestyle.
That's the biggest thing.
Like, that is part of it as well. And I think Simons would. I mean, either of those guys would do, I think, a fantastic job for you. Like, you're not complaining if it's Simons. You're not
at all.
Eze,
and I'm not complaining if it's Semenyo either. I think Semenyo is a really good option for Spurs. But I think Bournemouth would. The price, I think, would be maybe a bit of an issue considering the other players they're losing. I think they'd hold out for a lot of money, which I think maybe Spurs would look at and go, is that worth it? I'm not sure.
Well then, let's jump over to Newcastle because their transfer rumours are interesting. I thought they'd be linked to more players. And again, as I said earlier, it's still very early on in the summer window. It's technically not open.
I think we said this last week, and Boyman felt like the banker.
Yeah, it did.
Like, that's not happening.
It felt like the one
now,
that wouldn't fail, and it has failed. He's gone to Manchester United when Newcastle had Champions League football to offer. Obviously, goalkeeper is a big one for them.
Yeah,
it does seem like that Trafford move is kind of edging closer and closer.
Yeah, they put in a bid yesterday, I think, which Burnley fans were like laughed them out of the room with it. I think they were like, "That's quite insulting." So I'm not sure what the money was, but
it's tough for them, I guess, because like, look, they're a Champions League club, and like for Burnley, this is somebody who did so incredibly well for them last season. It felt like last season when they first came up to the Premier League, and we saw him obviously get dropped eventually. It still felt like he was very young. Felt like he was very young. There were mistakes there. Feels like this championship season, and even the way I think he carries himself in interviews, I feel like he's got older. Yeah. He's matured a bit.
Backs himself a lot as well, doesn't he?
Exactly. The confidence is there, which I think, as I mentioned earlier, in a goalkeeper is so crucial. It's so important. However, we've also seen him linked to Kobel as well from Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund are kind of shipping him to a few places, or at least rumours are at the moment. I think, again, they should look at Petrovic as a possible goalkeeper here. These are all goalkeepers, I think, who, and rightly so, aren't replacing Pope, but challenging Pope. And that's, I think, a crucial point for this Newcastle side in what they want for their replacement goalkeeper. Do I still think it's the most important position for them? No. I actually think the right wing. And because of that, I think the transfer they can't miss out on really is Kudus. They went into Kudus this week. It's a lot of money to get him. And I think if you can get it down to 50, 60 odd, I think that's a transfer fee you'd be willing to pay, because that right wing position, Murphy had an incredible time there, and you would be challenging him again next season. But that is obviously a glaring spot there. We mentioned it with Burnley about him possibly going to Newcastle. That is a position that they need to be bringing in, really.
Yeah.
Depth, I think, elsewhere as well in that squad is crucial. But that right wing position, they can get someone there to take that attack to another level. And again, Murphy did very, very well.
Yeah.
But that right wing spot, they should be looking like that. Like, as much as I think Kudus had a poor year, we
Still
know there's
so
an
much
incredible
talent
player there, don't we? And if you go into a front line and you're coming up against it, and you're the defence that is facing Isak, Gordon, Kudus, and then even Barnes off the bench, Murphy off the bench, with a midfield of Joe Linton or Tonali, Bruno, that is some attack. Man.
Yeah. The question mark for me, and again, you don't want to. I've always said this about Kudus. I do worry a little bit. You have to be careful sometimes with these things about talking about players' attitudes and stuff like that. I think he's demonstrated at times not the sort of player that you'd necessarily imagine Eddie Howe wanting to go for. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't go for him, because he is quality. And also, like, taking moments from games where he gets himself sent off or whatever, or taking things that he said, you can't always judge a player's attitude necessarily on that. I think people are guilty of doing that sometimes. And I think sometimes a player like Kudus' quality is just staring you in the face, and it would be also he's versatile as well. Like, I think the big thing about Newcastle in that right wing role is maybe getting in someone who can also play in that number 10 position as a way of evolving the team a little bit, because I think they have Newcastle was such a good team, but I think the one area that you would say they lack, or the one trait they maybe lack, is a bit of creativity. They're very direct, very like, we win the ball back, we go, we quick. Like, there's not necessarily, if they come up against teams that maybe sit in a low block a little bit more. In the Champions League, they need that bit more X-factor quality, which is why Kudus does make sense. I'm still going to keep banging the drum about Noni Madueke, like, for Newcastle. I think that's the one they can't miss out on. Can play right wing, can play left wing. I actually really like him at left wing. Started to play there more there towards the end of the season for Chelsea, didn't he? And then I know the England games have been pretty miserable the last couple of days, but
was England's best player in the
Andorra game, playing on the left as well before he moved over to the right. He's so, like, when I watch Madueke, as frustrating as he can be sometimes, when he gets the ball, I always feel like something's going to happen. Like, I love Madueke, like, really, really like him.
I think I completely agree. I think his time to leave Chelsea, I think, could be next summer. Yeah, I think what we might see with this Chelsea attack is, especially now that we're in the Champions League and, like, the best players are going to have to be playing every game. And if this Esteval, youngster who is supposedly staying in the first team is what he's cracked out to be, like, that right wing position is his, essentially, right?
Oh god, yeah.
And then you're looking at possibly 4 different players battling for that left wing position. Obviously, depth is his thing, but I feel like Madueke doesn't want to be a depth player.
No, he wants to be a starter.
He wants to be a starter.
He's been Chelsea's best winger this season as well. Like, I think he has it. And
arguably, he should be the starter. And so maybe that's something I think for next year, because I think he definitely has the confidence where he backs himself to believe he can be starting for Chelsea week in, week out, as he should do. And whether that be the left wing or the right wing, I can see that happening quite easily. What we might see this year is maybe Esteval needs a bit more time to develop, and actually it doesn't happen. And Noni is the starter.
He's like 17, isn't he?
He'll be 18 when he joins.
Right,
he is 18, and when he joins, he'll be 18.
Yeah.
But I could, if Newcastle could get him, I think it would be definitely worth it. I just think it might be expensive.
Yeah, it will be. And also, like, I think you're from a club's perspective with Chelsea, or like the players' perspective, I think it does make sense to give it another year and move on next summer. But some of the reports you read about Chelsea willing to let him go, I just don't. I'm not sure if I believe it. But if it is true, I don't understand it. I think it's crazy. Like, unless you can get a good money for him.
This is what I think it costs. I think it costs good money to get it.
Be like 50 mil, 60.
I think 50 plus.
Genuinely, like, I know people might laugh at that with Madueke.
But it's an England international.
He gets picked in every England squad now. Has got, like, he's one of England's best wingers, Chelsea's best winger. Like, I still think people are sleeping on him a little bit.
I think it could be a big year for him next year.
Good.
Actually, next season could be a big season for him, and hopefully it is. Hopefully it is definitely from my perspective. Okay then, so let's chat a little bit about West Ham. We've got a couple more clubs just to get through. West Ham, Chelsea, and Everton are our final 3. West Ham doing some very interesting moves, actually. They are looking at a striker. Obviously, that is a huge position for them to kind of get right this summer.
Antonio's left, hasn't he? That's been confirmed. They're not giving him another contract.
Yes. Lucas Stassin is the boy from France who they're looking at. A young 21-year-old striker, scored 12 goals for Saint Etienne in the French division, which is strong. And interestingly enough, Saint Etienne were relegated, so he's not necessarily available for like
nice cheap deal,
a decent price here. Obviously, they tried the Evan Ferguson loan move, didn't work out in the end. They still got Fulkrig, who's a little bit older. They do kind of need to get this one right, don't they? Do you think it's that position that's crucial? They also kind of need a centre back. They're looking at an Argentinian playing for Red Bull Bragantino over in Argentina, called Kevin Lamonaco, who I think you guys have looked at as well. Another centre back who's out there. They've only got 5 defenders in general now, because they've let go, released a few. They've only got 5, that's including fullbacks as well. So defence is somewhere they need to get depth in as well. Striker is crucial. Looks like they're going though for more of these younger players who they can develop and maybe sell on eventually.
I like
that's the right way to go. What position do you think it should
I
be?
think so. Interesting as well.
Should they not miss out on?
I think a striker definitely is crucial. I don't know anything really about the striker. I do know someone that I saw someone tweet about it the other day who, when you have people that like, I trust your opinion on football, it's like, this kid's really, really talented. So it's like, I'd imagine it'd be quite a good move for West Ham. Interestingly, they seem to be looking at a midfielder as well, which you might look at West Ham and look at their squad and think, maybe do they need that? But I think their midfield lacks real quality. And they were linked with Josh Brownhill quite heavily as well from Burnley the other day. I think a smart signing for West Ham would be, and I said this in the video the other day, Hayden Hackney. If they're going to go down this route of like bringing in younger players and developing younger players.
At him as well.
He's so good, man. Like so good at he'd be such a big upgrade, I think, for now on Ward-Prowse. Like in terms of that role of someone getting it deep, progressing the ball through the lines. Defender, like you said though, in terms of pure, I think where their squad lacks real quality is in midfield. But I think where their squad lacks numbers and is a priority should be at centre half or just defence in general. So I think that would be an area definitely to target. But also, they do need a striker. West Ham need a lot. They need a lot.
I think they even need a goalkeeper as well, to be honest.
Yeah, has Ariola left? Or
there's rumours they're looking at getting a new one in anyway. I think, to be honest, they probably should be looking at a new one. That can't be Fabianski and...
no.
Or did Fabianski?
I think Fabianski did leave. Might be wrong, but...
And so there's a lot of positions there that are needed for this West Ham side. I would say, to be honest, numbers is more the crucial thing that you can't miss out on. Though I do like this kind of idea. One of the things that we've seen over the last few seasons that a lot of these clubs have been able to do is pick some of the best Championship players and bring them into the side and quite quickly showcase their Premier League quality. We're speaking about Palace doing it earlier, but there's been several teams that over the past few seasons that have done really well at that.
And West Ham have wasted a lot of money over the past few seasons. Don't get me wrong, they've had some big money moves that have been hits, like Paqueta. I know Paqueta wasn't silly money, but Kudus wasn't silly money, but they've been... Other than Kudus this season,
but even Kilman, they spent a lot of money on him to bring him from Wolves, and I don't think it was awful. I wouldn't say he
needs a good season next year.
Yeah, and I'd like to think with Potter and the man and him developing the squad even further, that'll happen. But I kind of reckon once the transfer window reopens, we might see West Ham end up doing some business quite early on. They need to, because essentially Potter right now doesn't have a squad to work
very
with, really.
Very thin.
So yes, Chelsea then. Let's talk a little bit about it. The position they can't miss out on. Now I thought they are obviously after Jamie Byner Gittins, which didn't happen in the end. He's actually going to the Club World Cup, but that one seems like it might happen post.
I think that's one that gets done straight away,
or can even be done during it once the transfer window opens. I think it's June 27th. They can re-register players for the Club World Cup knockout stages, I think.
Okay, so you could, in theory, sign Gittins from Dortmund during the Club World Cup and he plays for Chelsea during the Club World Cup.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if there's a thing where it's like, if you play for one club, you can't play for the other. I'm not sure. But then I don't understand what I don't know 100%.
I know that definitely is a re-registration.
There is a re-registration period. And then obviously we saw the Mike Maignan deal collapse, which a lot of Chelsea fans were obviously disappointed about. We've seen Petrovic it basically seems like it's admitted that he's not going to be part of
a lot of Chelsea fans not happy about that.
The Chelsea squad. And I think the issue is I didn't think Chelsea were going to go and get a goalkeeper because I thought, they're going to give Petrovic the chance. Supposedly Petrovic was the one that asked not to be taken to the Club World Cup.
Really?
Yeah, he was one of those he asked not to be taken to the Club World Cup because he wanted to know his future now and get it decided early on.
At least he knows it.
There you go. I guess it has happened now. And supposedly Chelsea are happy to go into next season with a Sanchez and Jorgensen duo. However, I don't think you can say that whilst then very publicly going after Mike Maignan.
Yeah.
You're kind of contradicting yourself there. And even if you are saying, we're taking an opportunity in the market, which is fair enough, you are still admitting that you're looking at another goalkeeper, which would say that you would possibly, especially a goalkeeper who is a ready-made goalkeeper for now. It's not like when they signed Mike Penders, this youngster from Belgium.
Or Jorgensen. Or
even Petrovic, arguably. You're looking at someone that is close to 30, is very much kind of in his prime now, ready to go. You are saying you were looking that showcases everybody. You're looking for a goalkeeper for now. I kind of feel like, and maybe this is more the optimist in me, again, just because it's not happened now, they didn't want to pay the Club World Cup tax, doesn't mean it's not going to happen eventually later on. We've seen many a times people say, deal's never going to happen now, and then it happens later on. Supposedly it was like £7 million difference. And again, I saw people complaining about how you were willing to pay that for other players. And it's like, look, just because they've done it wrong before multiple other times doesn't mean they should continue to do it wrong. I do actually sound the idea of, no, he's got 1 year left on his deal. He wants to leave and has said he's not going to sign a new contract. He has been one of the best goalkeepers in the world, hasn't been for the last 2 years or so, has had injury issues in his career. I don't for instance, say Chelsea were like, okay, let's spend 30 million on him or whatever, 30 million euros, whatever it was, and then suddenly he's injured after 2 years, or after 2 weeks, or he's not that great. Everyone goes, what an awful move that was. I actually think it's not that bad, especially for now. It can happen later on in the window. I think, and now showcasing your cards, I think that does show that Chelsea will sign a goalkeeper.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
It looks like Penders will probably go on loan to Strasbourg, which is another great place for him to. And this is someone who is very, very exciting in the kind of young goalkeepers out there. But it does showcase their card. I do think centre-back is still a crucial place for Chelsea. I know they brought in Sarr from Strasbourg, who we'll see. He's going to the Club World Cup for Chelsea, but he's another young kind of defender. I think Chelsea should be looking a bit more at some experienced guy to come in that back line and help, especially if they're looking to get offload to Sassi, if they're looking to offload Badiashile as well. They need to bring in this other centre-back, and I think the experience there could really help this side, especially in the Champions League. Going out and getting someone who's more like 27, 28 to kind of help this side. I didn't mind Jonathan Tah, obviously from Bayern. That kind of move would have been quite enjoyable. Those are the kind of things I think Chelsea should be doing, and the transfer they can't miss out on. I do think Maignan is someone they shouldn't miss out on as well. I really think that's someone they should go and get. Jamie Gittins, I think if you're going above 50 million for him, pull back. 50 million euros as well. Pull yourself back. Here. Let's calm down. An exciting winger, yes. Super quick. Does everything kind of what Maresca wants his wingers to do. Touchline winger. Will beat his man for sure. But I think 50 million euros is a lot of money to spend on another winger who is battling at that point 3-4 different players in that position. I think that's where we should maybe possibly calm down a little bit more.
I'd agree with that.
And I think last week when we were talking about Rodrigo, that's where things get very I could go, happy days, go spend the 80 million it costs to go get him.
Because Chelsea need a left winger, and to be fair, that's what Gittins is as well. He is an out and out left winger. He's not someone who necessarily is going to play on both sides. He is an out and out left winger. The thing is with Gittins as well is that even though I really like him from what I've seen, when you see him play at his best, he's got everything, like you said, you'd want as a winger, not just for Chelsea, but kind of in the Premier League, that ability to be direct, take his man on, score goals, kind of cut inside and bend it at the top corner. He's done that several times. He's also, the only problem is, he's also without a goal or an assist in or is it one goal and assist in this might be completely wrong, but it feels like it's been 15, 16 games or something like that. I saw the other day. He's not exactly on fire coming into this Club World Cup or towards the end of the season. So I totally understand why Chelsea want to get him, but I also totally understand why Chelsea would walk away at that kind of price. The issue is that does he go somewhere else and explode? Do you want to take that risk?
But that's an issue. That's a risk you can willing to take.
And
you
also, can say that about so many players.
And again, I mentioned it about Wirtz. I'd say the same in the Premier League. It is one thing being an explosive winger who's direct in the Bundesliga, where there is so much more room to run into, and it's another thing doing it in the Premier League. I think it's a very difficult difficult transition. I think it takes players time, and I think you've just got this Chelsea side to a squad who are competing within the top teams in the Prem, and even then, at times towards the end of the season, it was very shaky where they'd get Champions League football, and only got Champions League football because of the fifth place. Well, they didn't in the end, but came down to the last day. But the fifth place is what gave them the confidence, I think, to believe they could have Champions League football.
Yeah.
To then add another young player who needs to be developed to the side, I think it's a lot of pressure to put on him again. And like, you've already got your Tyreek George there who needs to find I think that's going to be great for him at the Club World Cup. But he himself, everyone says, is very talented, has all this potential.
Yeah.
Is he going to go on loan? Is he going to stay? Like, there's lots of questions there I think need to be filled out first. And the Club World Cup might answer a few of them, might showcase that actually they still need this, they still need that. And we'll see what happens.
What about because I was thinking about this with Chelsea. Like, would you only go and sign because it feels like the left winger market is very much like Rodrigo is the guy, and then other than him, you've got a lot of youngsters. Because it feels like some of the other more prized assets aren't attainable. Like Nico Williams, it sounds like he's either going to just stay at Bilbao, or there's now sounds like maybe a move to Bayern Munich. It doesn't feel like the Prem is open for him.
His wages are never going. His wages are Chelsea aren't going to.
The only other player that maybe might become available is Barcola, potentially.
I think if you can get Barcola, go and do anything. Chelsea have looked at him before.
Yeah.
Chelsea have looked at him before. But and it makes sense, right? Like, is he starting in that front three of what is now Doué, who's just blown up this season?
Yeah.
Because he was kind of dovetailing. They did get a decent amount of minutes, Barcola, Kvara, Scalia, or Dembele. And they still got Ramos to come back from injury as well.
Yeah.
And the future of Koulibaly is still questionable.
Yeah.
Like, if you can get Barcola, go and do it.
Yeah.
Genuinely go and do it. Like, that is such an incredible move. I just don't think PSG are going to sell him. I personally don't think that move's going to happen.
I think we all look at it sometimes and think of, we love PSG so much. How good is that front four? Oh, actually, one of them's come out of the team. They might be available. PSG are looking at, he's a squad player.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
If Doué was to get injured, who would we have?
Exactly.
So it's like,
exactly.
I don't think he'll go.
But if you could, happy days, snap your hand for him. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I also think right now, like, the rumours are kind of gone to bed now for a little bit. In a couple of weeks, might see some new ones spark for Chelsea. And we've kind of gone a little bit quiet, I think, at the moment. Okay, last but definitely not least, let's chat a little bit about Everton. We mentioned Grealish earlier as an interesting one if they could get him.
Yeah.
They're also looking at James McAtee for the
I
midfield.
like
I think
that.
that'd be a great move. They're looking at the striker from Villarreal, Tierno Barry.
Yeah, played really well for France under 21s last night.
He's had a good season too. Expensive for maybe Everton's level of £34 million to get him, but this is the kind of transfer business I'd like to see Everton do and get these youngsters in. And mentioned before, Moyes has a good track record with strikers, to be honest, genuinely.
A lot of attackers have thrived under him.
Exactly, and getting the best out of these young players when they join. The other one, I thought was interesting, he wants to come back home to his dad, Kufau. Obviously left West Ham. Supposedly Everton are going to be the move to bring him in at right back.
It's not a bad shout.
Which is not bad at all. Yeah, it's fine. Obviously Ashley Young's time at Everton ended.
Yeah, they're giving Coleman a new contract, aren't they? He's staying.
Yeah, which I think there's a lot. Coleman, I think behind the scenes does so much to that Everton side. I remember Frank Lampard talking about him, how crucial he is to that squad, not just at the club. Everyone, like from the secretaries to everybody at that club.
Yeah, he's a top guy.
He's unbelievable with, which I think is fine to do. Kifau as well. There's he's not that young either. He's in his 30s. Like, they should eventually be looking at a replacement for him. But it's fine for a season, I guess. Especially if he can get that attack working now. Like, whether they sell Brentford or not, they do have the replacement in O'Brien there.
Yeah.
Who's kind of been ready-made, or at least had a good season once Moyes came in for it.
Yeah.
The midfielder then get a McAtee in. There's fun. There's rumours about Ndidi leaving. Not Ndidi, sorry. No, the DM.
Gay.
Gay. Decore's left as well, so they need to bring in another DM or at least a midfielder, which, especially one that can go forward, which McAtee is. Different build, very different build, but still a fun midfielder to add. So what of those rumours do you think is the one they can't miss out on? Striker, because obviously Calvert-Lewin.
I think it's a striker. I think Tierno Barry would be so exciting. I really, really like it. I think he got, I think it was like 14, 15 goals and assists maybe for Villarreal last season. Again, I've not seen loads of him, but again, from like people that you kind of know and trust, from what they're sort of saying, this guy's a really big talent. And from what I have seen of it, I do really like. feels like an Everton striker.
Yeah.
Like when I look at him and kind of look at the way he plays and his frame and all those kind of things, like I think that makes sense. I feel like it's just quite an exciting move that Everton haven't really gambled on in a while. And I think I was thinking about this yesterday. When you go through that France under-21 team, of which he is a part of, you could like. Someone tweeted and was like, that France under-21 team will probably finish like 10th in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Like you're getting a lot of talent there. You've got Tell, Odebear, Barry, like a lot of these players like are just Premier League quality. And I think Barry would make a nice step up. So yeah, I like it. I do. That's the one for me. Calvert-Lewin seemingly gone, but also apparently not. Like he wasn't. They did their kind of release list, didn't they? And they were like, oh, we're still actually in talks with Calvert-Lewin over a new deal, but he hasn't signed it. So we'll see.
Yeah, that one. I mean, I also think they need to kind of think on and move on from maybe the Calvert-Lewin time. It's done, personally. But what an episode that was. A long one, actually.
An episode that was, by the way.
A lot of transfer rumours. Ben, thank you so much
Pleasure.
for joining me, as always. If the people at home want to check you out, where can they go?
TikTok, Ben Bowman, YouTube as well over there. Just did a video on how Thomas Frank's going to set up at Spurs. More Frank Spurs content coming, and FC Bottle Job podcast as well.
Lovely. That will be linked down below if you want to see that Spurs propaganda. If you enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more. I've got a video coming out on Sunday, by the way. Big one.
Look forward to it.
Get ready. Check it out. I'll see you guys then. Bye.
Nice one.